with Jeanne Betancourt. Hello.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Jeanne Betancourt. I was involved in film and education for many, many years, and then I became a writer. I've written children's books and scripts, and now I'm retired from that career, and I'm a printmaker and a fine artist.
How did you discover your dyslexia?
I discovered my dyslexia when I realized that my daughter was dyslexic. I had never, even though I was in education, this is so very long ago, that the word wasn't bandied about in education, but I had written a script and I was on set with my script, and the mother of one of the actors told me that she was a special education teacher who specialized in helping people with dyslexia, and I said, "What's that?" She described dyslexia to me, and I said, "I think my daughter is dyslexic." And I then took my daughter and had her specially tested. She was 15 at the time, and indeed she was dyslexic. So I started reading up on it and realized that's me. I never questioned her problems in learning and her learning style because it mirrored my own. So we both discovered our dyslexia at the same time. And then I got a tutor for her. She had untimed, we took the SATs, got into a very good college, and her life moved forward. I, on the other hand, was already a full-time writer. You know, I had, whatever I had done, it had worked so that I could have a career in writing.
And how did you feel during your childhood and education?
I had a lot of trouble when I started regular school. You know, first grade, there were no kindergartens then. We're talking about right after World War II. And I had trouble learning to read. But I do remember I had a teacher who had us drawing the letters in the air, all this very physical stuff, and I think that helped me. And very good teacher. But spelling, where you had to memorize, or doing timetables where you had to memorize, I was terrible at. And my father was so shocked because I was expected to be extremely bright, and then suddenly I was bringing home C in spelling on a paper. And I remember he went and talked to the teacher, and then he made me write the words over and over. So I felt really frustrated because I knew I was smart, but I wasn't getting the grades to match that. So I experienced a lot of frustration. And when I got to high school and started doing foreign language, it was miserably hard for me. Fortunately, I ended up doing my high school in an small all-girls school where there were only 25 in my grade. So I got a lot of extra attention, and the things that I was good at really showed up. So I didn't feel totally put down, but I felt I wasn't in step with the way my brain was working in terms of the mechanics of reading and writing and memorizing especially. So that was my experience in childhood and through my education. I went to a very small girls' college because I was a Catholic nun for 6 years, and that's where I got my education. And again, I had so much trouble with the Latin and the French. And then when I went for my master's degree, I took it in film. So, you know, I was learning the language of film, which to me was the easiest thing in the world. So my master's was a delight until I had to take the foreign language test in French. And that I had to take 3 times before I could get my degree. But, you know, it was so out of step with how I was doing. In the meantime, I had written a book about the image of women in film that was published. So, you know, but I couldn't pass that French test, even though I'd had 4 years of high school and 2 years of college in French, and it was just a translation thing, of written translation. So, in my whole education up through graduate school, I think I was taking steps to find the better way for me, but in fact, you know, I was able to do that because I'm really smart, you know, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't realize that by picking out film as my master's degree that I was actually doing the right thing for someone who has dyslexia.
And how did you experience the dyslexia during your adulthood?
I pretty much talked about that right now. I continue to experience. I experience it almost on a daily basis by having trouble finding an address. As an adult, within the last 12 years, I tried studying Spanish very actively as I started to retire from writing, because my family was living in Mexico and they all spoke Spanish, and I really wanted to communicate. I wanted to communicate in that language, and I love the language. And, I didn't succeed. I can speak a little Spanish, but very little, because the vocabulary was so hard for me to memorize. So, yeah, I experience it regularly. It's not something you overcome, it's something you compensate for. And yeah, that's how I experience it in adulthood.
So you didn't overcome dyslexia?
No. I didn't get all the help I could have had as a child, certainly. I just lucked out with my first through third grade teachers were great. Then I went to Catholic school, and the nuns, it was all memorizing and learning by rote and sitting still. And, I think a lot of who I was and who I am was squelched, that I didn't get to really express myself. Fortunately, from the time I was in first grade, I took tap dancing classes, so I had dance, and then ultimately I had art, but not through my schools, didn't help me with any of that.
But you found your talent.
But I found my talents, or they found me, Yes, I found my talents, and I still enjoy them tremendously.
And what message do you want to share for parents of children with dyslexia?
I think parents just need to see what is stunning about your children and where their gifts are, and really give them the help they need with those gifts and the access to the services that will help them develop their gift and exercise it, but at the same time, because that's probably going to be sport or art or music or design, they're going to need those skills of reading and writing, and that you need to find the tutors, the schools, you need to have the patience to help them through that. And since many of you are probably dyslexic or can find where that is in your family tree, have understanding of those members of your family as well, but at the same time, look, Jack, you're just like Grandpa, you're such a great carpenter, but look how he misspelled the word in the postcard he just sent us, I think it's just seeing where the strengths and, if you want to call them weaknesses, or that don't fit in with traditional learning styles, and those things that you need to compensate for. I think you need to help your kids find the ways to compensate, and also to get the skills they need to help them through life, so that they do have the opportunity to shine where their strengths are.
And what advice do you have for children with dyslexia?
Oh, revel in your gifts, enjoy them, and be very aware that the thing I mostly told kids when I was going around talking about my books and being with classrooms a lot, is that in our education system in America anyway, I don't know about other countries, a lot of the value of a person's level of education a lot of that value is put into their reading levels, and that I feel is a mistake, and that it's important to learn to read, and you do want your reading level to go up, but it's going to be slower for you if you're dyslexic. And so you shouldn't judge yourself in comparison to other people based on that. You look at the whole person and all of their gifts, and there are many more gifts than the ability to learn to read quickly. You'll learn eventually, and then all the time, the rest of that time, you've been developing the things that come more easily to you and becoming
skilled.
Thank you, Jeanne, for this great message.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You for your time.
It was fun to talk to you all.
Thank you.